Aikweama, who's a writer, Pan-Africanist writer. I remember him talking about this veneration of kings and queens, and I should say that actually, even in my mother's lineage, I come from a monarchy. But he was talking about veneration of kings and queens, and he was saying that the problem with kings and queens, like it's nice as a kind of image, I suppose, of feeling, affirmed. But the problem with kings and queens is that it presumes that they're slaves, right? Because how do you have a kingdom without servants, right? And usually some level of indentured or enslaved people. And so I think that's the systemic analysis of what you're saying. So if you have an economic system or a political system that is where possibility is basically based on some people needing to be oppressed or treated badly in order for others to thrive, then yes, that can never be, in the end, a system that produces equality for everybody. And, it's interesting because there's this awkwardness around conversations around capitalism, but I think a lot of people don't understand that from a Black diasporic perspective, so for example, from an African American perspective, but also from the African continent, one of the reasons why the liberation movements tended towards like an anti-capitalist analysis or a leftist analysis was just because the reason why we were in the predicament, like we ended up in the predicament, right? The reason why, Black people ended up enslaved, Africans ended up enslaved in the United States of America and the Caribbean, why the African continent, is still in this ridiculous position of basically having most of the wealth of the world in its soil and in its mines and in its hands, and yet being at the absolute bottom rung of the global economy, is because we were needed to fuel the success of others, right? And I spoke at the beginning about racial capitalism, that actually the reason, the continent was conquered for money, right? To fuel industrialism and to fuel other people's wealth. And the way that was justified was by saying that we were lesser. And so racism is basically in a direct relationship with capital accumulation. And that's just history. That's not an ideological analysis. That's literally just history. It is the reality of history. And like I said, I think, there's still a lot of kind of pushback around, this question of why is it that Black people have this anti-capitalist and aren't Black radicals or Black freedom thinkers? But it's just that. It just comes out of the history. It's like, well, if something is the ultimate source of your oppression, why would you not have a critique of it?